Greetings everyone, my name is Emmanuel and I would like to welcome you to our program today. We are continuing with our series on rebuilding a new Africa through decentralization. And our topic today is, why are there so many churches and mosques in Africa, yet Africa is still poor and underdeveloped? There are two reasons why Africa is still poor and underdeveloped, even though we have so many churches and so many mosques in Africa. These reasons are: one, many of our pastors do not understand the terms of the new covenant. The second reason is that many of our pastors do not understand the gospel of the kingdom. And because they do not understand the gospel of the kingdom, they do not preach the gospel of the kingdom. Now, because of time, we are just going to talk about one of the reasons why Africa is poor and underdeveloped. And the reason is that most of our pastors, most of our religious leaders do not understand the terms of the new covenant. You see, the old covenant was a conditional covenant. That is to say, God told the children of Israel that if you will obey my words, if you will keep my commandments, I will bless you. But the children of Israel failed to keep God's commandments. As a result, God found fault with the people. Because God found fault with the people, God decided to change the terms of the new covenant. That is why the new covenant is an unconditional covenant. That is to say, God is not requesting people to do things in order for them to be blessed. God said through the prophets that he was going to save Israel. He was going to forgive their sins. He was going to cleanse them. He was not going to remember their sins. He was going to give them a new spirit, a new heart. He was going to write his laws in their minds and in their hearts. So God talked about the transformation of the Jewish people. Those who believe will be transformed. And the second thing that God promised under the new covenant was that he was going to bless the nation of Israel. So God, under the new covenant, promised two things. One, personal salvation of those who will believe the gospel of the kingdom. Second, God promised the children of Israel national prosperity. So the terms of the new covenant, in their simplest form, could be reduced to two important terms. One is personal salvation, personal transformation, and two, national prosperity. God promised to transform the children of Israel, all those who will believe the gospel. And secondly, God promised to bless their nation. The reason why we as Christians in Africa, the reason why our nations are not blessed, among other reasons, is that our pastors do not understand the terms of the new covenant. And because they do not understand the terms of the new covenant, they are perverting the gospel. They are preaching another gospel. You see, God promised to transform the individual by giving them a new heart and a new spirit, and by writing his laws in their minds and in their hearts. So anyone who believes in our Lord Jesus Christ is transformed, becomes a new creature in Christ Jesus. Only a transformed individual can contribute towards national transformation. Because many of the people who attend our local churches are not transformed, they cannot contribute towards the transformation of our nations in Africa. That is why Africa is poor and underdeveloped. For there to be transformation, believers have to be transformed. Only a transformed group of believers can transform their communities. Only a transformed group of believers can transform their nations. The reason why Africa is poor and underdeveloped is because most of the Christians in our local churches are not transformed. And because they are not transformed, they cannot transform their nations. It's as simple as that. That is why, among other reasons, African countries are poor and underdeveloped. Why? Because our pastors do not understand the terms of the new covenant. And because they don't understand the terms of the new covenant, they are preaching a wrong gospel. And because they are preaching a wrong gospel, that gospel cannot transform the individuals who attend our local churches. Because they are preaching a wrong gospel, that gospel cannot change the values of the people who attend our local churches. Because they are not preaching the terms of the new covenant, that gospel that they are preaching cannot give the people a new lifestyle. You see, when you are transformed, you will embrace kingdom values. When you are transformed, you will embrace a new lifestyle. And when you embrace kingdom values, and when you embrace a new lifestyle, you will become a transformational leader in your community and in your nation. When you embrace kingdom values, when you embrace, a kingdom lifestyle, you become a reformer in your community and in your nation. When you embrace kingdom values, you become a problem solver in your community and in your nation. When you embrace kingdom virtues and values and principles, you become a deliverer in your community and in your nation. The reason why most African countries are underdeveloped is because our pastors do not understand the terms of the new covenant. God promised that he was going to save the children of Israel. He was going to transform them, and he was going to bless their nation. But because our pastors do not understand the terms of the new covenant, they are unable to preach this to most of the people that attend their churches. So in order for Africa to be transformed, Christians have to be transformed through the preaching of the terms of the new covenant. So someone who is transformed is someone who is transformed mentally and who is transformed spiritually. So, two important things here. One, personal transformation. Two, national prosperity. Because our preachers don't understand the terms of the new covenant, instead of preaching national prosperity, they are preaching personal prosperity. That is why many Christians are talking about, what will I give to God so that God will in turn bless me? What must I do so that God will bless me? You see, many Christians have become transactional believers. Why? Because of the teachings that they are receiving in their local churches. They are always thinking about what they can give to God, what they can do for God to bless them. As a result, many Christians have become collectors. As a result, many Christians have become materialistic. As a result, many Christians have become egocentric. As a result, many Christians have become selfish. Why? They are always looking for their own personal interest. How they are going to outsmart someone to be blessed. What they are going to do to provoke God to bless them. They are always thinking about material things. They are always thinking about themselves. They are always thinking about, how to be blessed. And they forget that Paul tells us in the New Testament, Ephesians chapter 1 verse 3, that we are already blessed. You don't give to God for God to bless you. You are already blessed because you are heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ. What belongs to God belongs to you. So you don't need to give anything to provoke God to bless you in return. You are already blessed. You are in the kingdom. You have access to everything that God owns. So you see, because our pastors do not understand the terms of the new covenant, they are preaching another gospel. And because they are preaching another gospel, Christians, good people who want to know God, who love God, they have become victims of manipulation from their own very pastors. The pastors are manipulating them. Give this seed, sow this seed in order for God to bless you. If you don't do this, God is not going to bless you. If you don't do this, God is going to punish you. If you don't do this, you're not going to see the blessings of God. So these good Christians, good people who want to know God, they are being manipulated. These Christians who want to serve God, they have become victims of some of their unscrupulous pastors who are manipulating them to enrich themselves. Why? Because Christians don't understand the terms of the new covenant. Our pastors are supposed to talk about national prosperity, not personal prosperity. Because they are always talking about personal prosperity, many Christians have become transactional Christians. Many Christians have become egocentric. Many Christians can even kill just to get money. Many Christians, manipulate people in order to get money. Most people have become materialistic because of the kinds of sermons that we hear in our local churches. It is time for our pastors to change their sermons. They must now focus on national prosperity. You see, when our pastors begin to talk about national prosperity, about the terms of the new covenant, our conduct and behavior will also change. Why? Because we are transformed people. We now have a new value system. We now live under, a different king. We now have a different lifestyle. When our pastors talk about national prosperity, many Christians in our communities will become community activists. They will be looking for problems to solve in their communities and in their nations. Many Christians will become politically active. They'll become political activists. Why? Because they will be hearing the right messages from their pastors talking about national prosperity instead of, instead of them talking about personal prosperity, which encourages, selfishness, which encourages, egocentric lifestyle. So God promised to bless the children of Israel. He promised to save them. He promised to bless their nation. So our pastors should be talking about personal salvation, personal transformation. Only a transformed group of people can transform their communities. Now, when our pastors talk about national transformation, they will be equipping believers to become community activists. They will be equipping believers to become, transformational leaders to solve the socio-economic and political problems in their communities and nations. When pastors begin to talk about national prosperity, they will be training and equipping believers to become innovators, to solve the problems around them. They will be equipping believers to become inventors, to invent things to solve the difficult problems in their communities and in their nations. When believers begin to hear the message of national prosperity, they want to do something to solve the problems in their communities and in their nations. And when pastors understand national prosperity, they will build schools, that will provide skills for the members in their churches. And when believers have skills, they'll be able to have jobs. And when they have jobs, they'll be able to contribute towards the development of their communities and their nations. When pastors understand this message of national prosperity, especially pastors who have mega churches, they'll be able to build hospitals, build schools, build hospitals, build factories, open orphanages to help the orphans, to help the poor. They'll build feeding centers where hungry people can go there and feed and get something to eat. That will contribute to the transformation of our communities and our nations. So the reason why Africa is poor and underdeveloped is because our pastors do not understand the terms of the new covenant. And there are two of them. One is personal salvation and national prosperity. When our pastors begin to preach about, personal transformation and national prosperity, the believers in our churches will take the responsibility to solve the socio-economic and political problems in our communities. The mega churches also will build schools, to give people the necessary skills, and they will build hospitals, and they will build, factories to employ people. And when there is employment in our communities, in our nations will prosper. Thank you so much for watching this video. We are going to continue next time. Until then, bye-bye.